Hello and welcome to the Age of Engagement live stream presented by the Abington Launchbox at Penn State Abington. I'm Peter Hornberger. I'm the director of the Abington Launchbox and a lecturer at Penn State. This workshop that we're about to hold is part of the offerings during Global Entrepreneurship Week at Penn State University. And Global Entrepreneurship Week is an annual celebration of the relationships between members of the university and the local entrepreneur communities. So we have virtual presentations, workshops, networking opportunities, case competitions going on all throughout the state, and this is one of those offerings, so thank you for joining us. We're excited and honored to have Brian Saviano join us today. He is also programming and creating content as Brix O'Brien. Brian's a content creator, entrepreneur, and engagement specialist. As I consider the messages that are important for our students and members of our Penn State community to hear, very few seem to resonate as what I see coming from Brian on a regular basis. From fun and silly to serious and introspective, Brian creates strong connections with his audience, young and old. So with that, let's say hello to Brian. There he is. Hello, Brian.
Hello. I am excellent. Thank you for having me. That is the most distinguished intro I'll probably ever have in my life. I am very happy about that. Thank you for having me, Peter.
You can always come back for more. I will write whatever you want next time, but those were true feelings of things that I have identified and noticed as I've gotten a chance to watch you first as, I guess, a parent of a fan, and then as a fan myself. So thanks for joining us. And I just wanted to put out a message for everyone before we get rolling with Brian and learning about what he does. This is part of Global Entrepreneurship Week, and Brian is really an expert live streamer. So while we're engaging, please feel free to engage with the chat feature and do things like say hello, like people are doing right now. So you can say hello, you can ask questions, you can add comments. We have topics to cover, but this is also being done for you, the viewer. So if you have things you want to hear about, if there's things you want to learn about, please feel free to ask, and please say hello. But also, since it's Global Entrepreneurship Week, maybe drop a little note where you're tuning in from. I'm here in my basement, just outside of Reading, Pennsylvania. You don't have to be that specific, but just say hello and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now let's get over to Brian. So Brian, let's give you the real welcome and say the floor is going to be yours. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why we brought you here.
Yeah, so I am a family-friendly content creator that produces things all across different mediums on the internet. From live streaming, like you said, I do podcasting, gaming content, and like you also mentioned, more introspective discussions on a very frequent basis. And I somehow managed to juggle all of those things to become Brix O'Brien and Brian Saviano just as a person online. And it's just a very interesting dynamic between having all these different things that I do in the sides that they are. And I find that not a lot of people are doing things the exact way that like I'm doing them. So it's just a lot to handle all at once, but very, very honored to be doing it as my full-time gig. Very, very exciting. I started when I was, I want to say 13 years old in my grandparents' spare bedroom, the office, where I would look up videos online and see that people were making gaming content on YouTube back in like 2009 when everything was very new and fresh on YouTube. And I thought, well, if people are sharing their passions for video games in whatever way they are, why couldn't someone like me do that, you know?
Agreed.
So I saw that as like a open invitation to kind of go out and do my thing. And over the many years of running channels myself, working for other companies, making great connections with people in the Lego community and the gaming community, and just in general, I found myself being in the position I am in, and it's kind of all just accelerated from there. I'm very, very honored to be in the position I'm in.
Yeah, and we're honored that you'd share some time with us today. And I think, again, as we'll talk, we'll have plenty of things that resonate with people, young, old, whether you're a gamer or not, whether you play with Lego or not, build with Lego, are an artist. I think engagement is the pathway that we're all looking to create meaningful relationships, and you're an expert at it. So let's say hello. I see people from now all over the country. Kevin Takino, not that far from us in Chester. I see Darren Siegfried from Las Vegas. We've got Echo Bricks all the way from the UK. So we did extend outside of the borders of the United States. So thank you, Brian, for getting us getting us actually international during Global Entrepreneurship Week.
No
but
problem.
one of the things, just to go back to a point you made about how nobody's really doing things exactly the way you are. You have this level of diversification, which I think is one of the things I really thought was the main driver, that you're on different platforms, you're talking to young and old, you're silly, but you're also super serious and introspective, and I think healing for many people to be able to watch you. You talk about how did you get from, a 13-year-old looking at videos to having this ability to diversify your message, your platform?
Well, for me, I knew that YouTube was always a thing that piqued my interest because of what it unlocked for people, very early on. And everything was so brand new that the possibilities were endless. And I could see this potential that was there. And in the age where a lot of people are not very trusting of the faceless multi-billion-dollar corporation, people are more trusting in individuals who are putting out their message, whatever it might be, looking for positivity in times of uncertainty, especially with the past year and a half that we've had. And people are looking for more realism and more relatability. And that's where I have found myself really striving in being as authentic as I can be. When I'm on camera, when I'm doing my thing, sometimes I may go to 11 and be a more amped up version of who I am, but it's still me. I'm not playing a character. I'm not being disingenuous to who I am as a person. And that was really the baseline fundamental for what would now be Bricks O'Brien. I do things family friendly. I like to engage with people in a very family friendly way. I want to be as open to as many types of people as possible. And my content isn't necessarily for people that are, kids or for adults. It is really for anyone. You could go into my live stream and ask me a question that's, a more serious life topic, like, hey, can I get some advice? Or just want to talk about the newest Mario game. Like, the vibe can change at whatever point. And that's what I've opened myself up to and allowed for myself and my community.
Yeah. And you do it well. And we've already got questions coming in. And I think that's a testament to, how accessible you are and how much you will adjust to the audience. And I think that's something that really is very good. But let's start, Joseph Sawada had a question that's similar to what you were talking about with online creation being a difficult industry, oversaturated. Everybody's able to put content out now. I'm doing it. And trust me, I'm completely unqualified to do this. But what are some other things you can do to create that unique connection, particularly if you were starting? Do you have any suggestions on how does someone identify what that connection point might be with a new audience?
Right. Well, I got a lot of my start by not just being myself and putting myself out there solely, because when I was first 13, going through high school and all that, I was struggling, of course, like anyone else, to make my channel, make my presence as unique as possible. But there's other opportunities that you can open yourself up to by potentially collaborating with other people or working for other entities that are larger than yourself and providing something in that way to then find your voice, to find whatever you bring that's unique to that table, that section of the larger audience will really engage with, and then they'll connect and they'll follow you. So that's where I found myself over the years. The most perfect example right now is me being on a YouTube channel called Beyond the Brick, which has 900,000 subscribers, way more than me, but people on that audience are resonating with what I have to say, and they're coming over to where I'm at on my end of the internet, and the message is unanimously across it, right? It's not a different version of me. It's still who I am, and people follow that journey. So if you're just starting out, if you're trying to find a way to get into it, there's nothing wrong with trying to go to a larger channel, offer some services as you are as an individual, bring whatever knowledge you have from your life and be willing to learn in that environment. A lot of these channels are looking for content creators or commentators or something like that. So that's what I would suggest if you're really just starting out baseline from zero, nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, no matter what you're doing, is before you build your audience is to get connected and be a contributor to other people's audiences. And I think then you'll identify where things resonate. And again, just some comments coming in. Jennifer Hoddle talked about how her son is 8. Going to be bummed that he's missing it. Good news is it's on YouTube. It's going to be archived. So the same link that you're tuning into right now to watch the live stream, you can use that same link anytime to check back in. And what else do we have? We had a couple questions about audiences, particularly young audiences. So let's jump over to that question. So Ashley
Sure.
Ross, as we're going through, because Jennifer's got an 8-year-old. I have an elementary school aged child. So for us, a lot of our entrance into the Bricks O'Brien universe is through our kids. So how do you market, right? I mean, it's a particularly critically important group of people, but also really sensitive group. So how do you balance building engagement and particularly marketing to young children as part of your brand?
Well, I do it with as much respect to not just the parents, but to the kids as possible. When I'm doing my thing, I'm talking in the same voice. I'm not amplifying myself to be something that I'm not. And I found that really resonates with younger viewers is talking to them as if they were an adult, not with adult language, of course, but, respectfully. And in terms of the marketing with that, just like with any sort of content, whether it's directed toward kids or a particular audience in general, it's about marketing that accordingly, which means, in part, making sure that you're on as many platforms as you possibly can, where a lot of platforms don't necessarily have a kid-targeted audience, like Twitter, not particularly on Twitch either, but being on as many different platforms and places as possible allows you to get the more larger net of people to be involved with your content. And just recently, I signed a deal with the help of my management to be on Roku as its own individual channel in which parents can go look up Bricks O'Brien by speaking into the remote, and then you find my family-friendly content there within its own kind of walled garden, if you will. So you can watch as much as you'd like to, and you won't be led astray by the very questionable things that are on YouTube that you're like, oh, what's this weird suggested video from this other person? So making sure that you're aware of what type of audience you have and then catering to that audience as much as you can, whether it is through Roku, maybe it's having some advertising marketed toward the parents on Facebook. Hey, my kid is looking for family-friendly content, and I saw this Facebook ad, and here he is. I can watch him on YouTube or wherever that might be. So it can be very delicate, especially with a lot of the legislation that's happened in the past couple of years. The Child's Online Privacy Protection Act was a big thing for all creators on YouTube just a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of creators, unfortunately, out there that don't carry the same level of respect for the parents or the kids, and that gives people like me sometimes a not great reception, but I persevere by just being me.
And again, that's all, but it's also part of what we particularly in this digital age of engagement is, even if you're creating content that is family friendly, all ages, if the environment, the ecosystem that's around it is not supportive of that, then that impacts you and your brand as well. So again, I'm really happy that you've gotten into that Roku platform that creates that ecosystem around you that I think is going to match the values that you put out in your content.
Right, and that's what parents have really appreciated about what I do. Is I am doing things the way that I'm doing them. Instead of going for that shock value or that flash in the pan, that whatever, it's more so content. Like you said to me, I think it was in the last call we had, you were like, if I hear Brian's voice in the background, then I know it's going to be safe, right? That to me is not something marketing dollars can buy. That is not something that you can persuade people to do. You just you do that over years, and you build that trust and that level of standard and quality in what you do. And I value that incredibly heavily.
And it truly is. That to me, that's your brand. But even beyond that, Brian, is that as my son is watching you, I still watch because I find you engaging, informative, entertaining. But I also really appreciate the extra lessons that I'm getting in how to set up cameras, how to speak into a microphone. I just said, if you watch Brian for an extended period of time, his communication is spotless. It's something that I literally watch and listen to people like yourself to learn where am I, where could I be better in my role as a communicator as well. So I think that's something that you also bring value to the parents and the non-children members of your community also can learn from you as well.
Yeah, not for nothing. If you're going to have my videos on in the background, I don't want the parents thinking, "Oh, Brian's so obnoxious, turn that off," right? Because from a business angle, no, watch more of my videos, please. A, and then B, I don't want you to be annoyed by what I'm saying, So if I can toss in little nuggets of information while I'm playing Animal Crossing, whether it's something that happened in my day that is a silly story or whatever it might be, that's where I feel the magic of my content is, in those little moments where you're like, if you're actually listening, you can hear these side tangent life lessons or whatever it might be that you're not going to get in most of the other content that I've watched that's family friendly. It's either very informative and down to the wire about what the game is, and that's totally fine. But my approach is if you were playing video games with an older cousin at a family event or something. That's kind of the vibe that I want to go for, because that's honestly what I wanted as a kid. Growing up as a single child, I didn't have anybody to play with right next to me. No brothers, no sisters. So that's the kind of the vibe I wanted to go for. And yeah, people are resonating with it, thankfully, very much so.
Oh, indeed. There's lots of that. And I appreciate the chat is full of things, and we're going to try to get to all that as we go through. I'm going to just give you, Brian, a call to action, right? So where do we find you? So there's some links down in the description of this video as well. But I just want to give you a couple of spots in time, because you're on a lot of platforms. There's a lot of places that people can engage. If someone is tuning in for the first time or the 50th time, but this is resonating with them, where do they find your content?
Yeah, so I upload daily gaming videos to YouTube. So if you want a more passive watch but not engage sort of experience, YouTube would be the platform to do it. If you want to be more actively engaged, talking in the chat, things like that, you can watch me on Twitch, which is a dedicated live streaming platform mostly for gaming, but other content as well. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, whether I'm promoting some event that I have going on or whatever might be popping up, events like this. That's another place you can go. I try to provide little bits of content everywhere, whether it is on TikTok or an Instagram reel or something, just to give you a sense of who I am. But I would say the driving forces right now at this very second are YouTube and Twitch in terms of the most engagement you would get from me.
Yeah, and that's great. And we're going to get to a couple more questions as we go through, because we're getting people from South Carolina, outside of Detroit as well. So this is great. So thank you, Brian, for helping us reach out and probably engage with people that have never even maybe heard of Penn State Abington, because it's a part of all of our roles, I think, to engage and to extend our voices and make new connections. That's something that I think you really are bringing to the table. And with that, I wanted to get into this concept of community, right? There's plenty of people that I'm seeing right now in the chat that I know are from your community. And I think that's a really powerful thing right there, that you have trust and connection with members of your community, that they're willing to traverse into new spaces, come to a YouTube channel that they would have no other reason to come to other than you're here. But can you talk to me about how is it that you've been able to create community? What are some things that you've done specifically to build community around your content and your channels?
Well, it's a matter of being engaging, first and foremost. You can't be just making the thing, whatever that thing is, and then expect people to latch on to you unless you're taking off like a big superstar. But for the most part, you want to focus on having that super friendly and inviting sort of attitude. And especially for someone like me who is family friendly, I can basically cast this wide net of people, because some people would probably not want to hear a guy that's swearing and cussing during a Minecraft video or otherwise. And part of that also is in me seeing opportunities or seeing things going on and having this certain level of awareness when it comes to these things. Like if I want to collaborate with a channel, is it going to be because I want to just get more numbers, or is it going to be a guarantee on here that they're going to be family friendly and be reflective of my brand as well? So whenever I'm collaborating with somebody else or going on a channel or whatever, I'm making sure those values are still in with me and instilled in my community that yes, if I'm going to be on this channel, this is going to be a family-friendly environment that I am proud to represent as Brian Saviano, and I can recommend this to you. And if I can't have an absolute guarantee that my audience is going to feel welcome and be in an engaging place in that, then I'm not going to recommend it. And I've turned down other opportunities before because it just hasn't been a good fit. And I do find myself struggling to expand that community beyond like the obvious people. Like Beyond the Brick is family friendly, it's fine, but a lot of other creators that are 20-something years old, they're cussing up a storm while playing Dead by Daylight, and that's just not. It's not me. I can't cross those streams. But it's a matter of maintaining what you have in your own house and making sure the ship that you have is well kept and stays a certain level of, like I say in my Discord, classy. Gotta keep it classy. So.
Yeah, and you've got some shout outs from the from some of your subgroups. I don't know if you can see the chat, but Mom Squad is making itself well known, and they are a popular group that you have. So again, it's not just the young people watching the content, but you've also made fans out of the parents and the groups.
It's incredible because like I found this happening a couple times. So a kid will watch me on Roku, YouTube, whatever. All right, cool. And then the mom will like on Facebook, stay in touch with the new Bricks O'Brien merch, new videos. Then they find the Mom Squad, which is a dedicated group of parents, not just moms. Dads can be in there too. Just call it the Mom Squad for branding, right? But they're in there, and then they all share pictures of the Halloween costumes or this cooking recipe or this video game or like what. It's such a very interesting thing that like even like a family friendly content creator will not have a dedicated Mom Squad Facebook group, and it's something that I engage with and I watch from afar, but they'll just talk amongst themselves because if all these parents have this like mind for liking video games and wanting to share that passion with their kids, and if it's through my videos or not, they get to be there and engage in that environment, and I foster that wholesome environment as much as I can. We're not talking about politics or other divisive topics. Let's keep it classy. Like there was actually a post recently. A mom was like, in this group, we talk about Legos, video games, and putting Brian's face on merchandise. That's about it. Like, let's keep it to that.
Stuff. Yeah, all the stuff that
of course. Yeah, and everybody has a level of self-awareness in there too. And I love talking to a lot of the moms. I've actually gotten to know a lot of the parents in that group that I'll privately message. Like if I have something cooking up, I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it acts as kind of a focus group in a way on the business side of it, but also I just get to talk to people and I get to engage with that community more, and then they get more involved, and like it all comes from a genuine place. It's not just a place of me, how can I maximize audience retention, and it's just I'm finding my way to engage with my audience as authentically as possible, and it seems to be going pretty well. Thankfully.
I think so. And by the way, if you're more than welcome. You don't have to take questions from me. You can digest things from the chat as well. One of the things that I think I really appreciate is sometimes when I feel my life is chaotic, I tune into one of your Twitch live streams and I realize there's so much chaos. You have people chatting with you. There's things taking over the screen. You're still managing a game that you're still playing and talking, communicating, managing chat. And I think, okay, I can definitely handle more because Brian if he's able to handle all of these different stimuli, different inputs, outputs of talking and engaging with the community, I can handle one more thing that I have to create for work. And that's one thing that I tend to use your streams for. It's a little bit of therapy for myself to say, you can do more. Brian can do it. You can do it.
Well, I mean, it all comes from me just being used to being, the jack of all trades, which is really like what content creators like myself are. We're doing all these different things at one time without realizing it, monitoring the chat, making sure the content is engaging and fun, making sure that, all these other things that are happening are within these confines of being family friendly, which, sometimes it can go astray, sometimes it can't. But it also helps having great moderators that are part of the whole journey as well, that are willing to, donate a little bit of their time to be there and help keep the kids in line, as I say. And I say kids, meaning the adults too, who get a little rambunctious, got to keep them in line. So it's not just the young people to keep an eye on either. But it makes for a very interesting and fun mix. And on the days when it's really great, it's really, really great and really fun. And I come out of a live stream and I'm like, man, that was really good. I felt the audience loved it. I loved it. And other days, like just this past Monday, I'm like, man, I got a headache. I'm sorry. I got to get out of here 15 minutes early. And people understand, Yeah. They are a very understanding group. And having that community fostered in that way is not a very common thing. A lot of people may have a chat or a community that's like, well, why aren't you doing more of this or more of that or whatever? But because I have all these parents that are a part of the Mom Squad and whatever, they know, like, okay, it's life. Like, take a day. You're okay. Yeah. We'll be here tomorrow. And they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I forgot to mention, we have our own moderator here from Penn State Abington, Alex Angermeyer. He's out there in the chat checking in and making sure everything's good. But again, we've got much of the Bricks O'Brien community. I think also much of the Penn State, particularly the Penn State Abington community. I see some of my students in here as well, and they're good people. So I'm pretty sure things are going well. And talking about that community, and we're going to transition just a little bit from this, but truly, what I see from community, Brian, is I'm seeing some of my students posting questions, and they're getting caring responses from people that are not typically in their community. So I know that they're coming from the Bricks O'Brien fan base, and it's really cool to see that same caring, sharing, supportive community when it comes into a different space is still at base value. Those same values, attitudes, and behaviors transfer over. So I appreciate that, and I really, to me, I'm really thankful to see my students interacting and seeing those communities combine, because I think that we have a similar student body that is, they work hard, they're pushing limits of what they can do educationally and experiences through work, community output, and I love it when they can combine and see others doing that as well. So I appreciate you for bringing your community to share a little bit with the community that I get to work with on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm honored to be here. The fact that you asked me to be part of this, and whatever I can do to answer any questions, especially from your students. I mean, I'm the guest on your turf here, so if there's anything I can answer from,
I will. So
yeah.
So let me jump to that, because we started talking a little bit about self-care, right? So Brian, if you're not feeling great on Monday, like, we understand, take some time to take care of self. I think that's something that I try to place into my classroom as well, which is, again, if my students are struggling, they're not well emotionally, personally, physically, health, that degrades the entire classroom environment. Mm-hmm. And I want everyone to be thriving, right? That is my objective, is we can all thrive, and I'm willing to put energy into that. So that's something that comes up. You talk about things beyond just video games and Lego. But one of our students, Valara, so she talked a little bit about her intent. She wants to create a YouTube channel talking about some of these things related to, confidence and just wellness. What are some of your thoughts about coming onto a platform and talking about things like wellness? What are some of your experiences being human in an environment where we are completely disconnected? And it's hard to be human in this space when you're just some digital pixels on a screen.
And not only are you digital pixels on a screen, but there's a sense of humanity lost when you're just communicating with somebody through a digital interface, Like, sometimes you forget that there's another person on there, or some people may see a creator like myself as just like, oh, well, he's a higher entity in a way. Like, you can't talk to him. Like, he's a and that happens with larger creators, not necessarily me, but that does happen. By wanting to talk about mental health, like, I'm a big mental health guy. I love talking about whatever. If there's something wrong in my life, I have no problem sharing that in whatever way that I want to with my audience. When something's going on, I have no hesitancy with saying, hey, this is a thing. I'm going to be okay, but I just got to take a day. Unfortunately, when it comes to content, in terms of the production of the actual content, the algorithms that are in place, the rate at which you engage needs to be this like a constant drip feed, or at least like a constant stimuli, whether it is through Instagram, Twitter, whatever platforms you're on, because that's what these social media companies like. They like when you're driving engagement, people to the platform and all that. And if you want to talk about mental health, I would implore, please do so, because especially after the past year and a half, people need outlets more than ever to facilitate those kind of conversations. What I have found personally, when I have done my fireside chats on Fridays, very casual, talking about whatever's going on, sometimes talking about things not even pertaining to the topic, but I personally need to be in a space where I'm willing to talk about it as the facilitator of the conversation. And if there isn't a driving force for me to talk about whatever's going on, then a little bit of that connection is gone, you know? So I like to be involved in whatever issue there might be. I'll talk about it, I'll bring it up, but I found that people also need to be willing to be on that level with you. So if you're fostering that environment of just mental health, you may find people aren't as engaged all the time because people aren't having issues all the time, potentially. When things are good, they may not want to participate. They're just, whatever. But when people are involved and when they're present, you're going to get a response that you're not going to get anywhere else. So I encourage it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valuable component, is that we can't constantly be saying, here's my vulnerabilities. Like,
yeah.
It also, we are vulnerable, but we're also surviving. And my hope is at some points in everyone's life, you have a point where you are thriving. And the hope is that we can maintain the focus on the things that we're thriving on, but also at the same time, when we need some of that recharge, when we need that connection, we can also say, you know what, I'm gonna lay open some of my vulnerabilities here. And being able to find that on platforms like Twitch or YouTube or any of these places, I think is something that obviously is really uniquely to 21st century life, because obviously those things didn't exist back then. But to me, these are conversations I don't know that they were happening, 40 years ago. Again, I was barely alive 40 years ago, but my guess is that there's a lot more platforms, and because people like yourself are having those conversations, I think a lot more people feel less alone, less isolated, or less weird because they have an emotion, right? Emotion is great. It doesn't mean it's always good emotion, but I think it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but it really evened the playing field for people. You can have an account on Twitter and reach a similar following as you would to a faceless multi-billion-dollar corporation. And that's not uncommon. Like, there are plenty of accounts that have millions or more followers than, like a Wendy's or a McDonald's. Like, you're engaging with your audience potentially in a way that some of these companies who pay millions of dollars in marketing are not even, so you can get your message out there. And sometimes that comes with some territory of trolls and people that want to tear you down, not want to have you get your message out there as a positive, reaffirming message. And all that needs to be shut down. I shut it down immediately. I have a very, very zero tolerance policy when it comes to anybody who's going to come in here and spread whatever misinformation or whatever they want to. So it's also about having a kind of a tough skin when it comes to being online and putting yourself out there, just like in real life too. You don't want to subject yourself to all these negative influences that are going to be there. You need to have a certain level of integrity with yourself. And when you're showing yourself with that level of integrity, okay, that's more confidence. Now people seeing me taking a stand against this negative force, people are attracted to that as people in general. And then that continues to grow and grow and grow. And that's how you continue to foster that. And it grows into something that you may not have ever intended for it to be.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go in a different direction because there was a chat question. And a few weeks ago, you were doing a stream at the end of October. You brought out the Ecto One, the Lego Ecto One, and mentioned about how Halloween's a great, how Ghostbusters is a Halloween movie. I made a comment in the chat, and you were quite a bit surprised that I did not think of Ghostbusters as a Halloween movie. So I went to class and I asked my class, I said, guys, just, I know it's a management class. We're talking about entrepreneurship, but I have this one question. Is Ghostbusters a Halloween movie? So somebody asked, it's just throwing it out there. And people can put this in chat if they want. But obviously you think it's a Halloween movie. Is Ghostbusters a Halloween movie? What do you think?
I really feel it is, because it when you're driving down the streets of the North Shore of Boston, you're near Salem, Massachusetts, Halloween Town, USA, you're hearing Thriller, you're hearing This Is Halloween, and you're hearing, who you gonna call? It's a part of that Halloween mix, and it has so many spooky vibes with it. You're not seeing snow on the ground in Ghostbusters. It may have released during the summer, whatever.
Fair.
To me, it has that spooky vibe for Halloween. You see kids are dressed as Ghostbusters for Halloween.
They are.
Like the more divisive question, though, is would Nightmare Before Christmas be a Halloween or a Christmas movie? That, to me, would be a much more divisive answer. But
we're not here to be divisive. We're here to hear different perspectives. You're right. I don't live near Salem or any of those hot spots of kind of Halloween and historic spirit kind of spaces like Salem in Massachusetts. So maybe I, in my isolated little town here in Pennsylvania, don't get a chance to see that as much. So I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, and so in my community, I facilitate conversations like that are divisive, right? It's never with ill intent. No. It's never in malice at all. But I, as a personality, as Brian Saviano, I'm willing to take that stand that says, yes, it is a Halloween movie. And that drives the conversation. Like what you and I had, we had that discussion through the live stream, and then we had it, right here, right now, right?
Why
so,
not?
And that is a different level of engagement that as long as everybody is on this even playing field, then you're able to have that engagement, and it's healthy. It's fun to
Absolutely.
be on two different sides of an argument. That's why there's debate class. Even if you don't believe in whatever thing you're debating, just having it, that helps just kind of get you excited. It just gets you going.
Indeed. And again, the divisiveness is a potential outcome, but it doesn't have to be. We can have different perspectives, different opinions, and still be cohesive. And that's, again, something else that's wise beyond your years, maybe even beyond my years, to figure out that we are allowed to have different opinions on things. It's all good.
And especially in the nature of the business that I'm in, you have all these different people that have all these different perspectives from one walk of life or another. And maybe it's just me as a person, but when I see somebody have a different opinion of me, whether it involves video games or something more, real world and serious, my initial reaction is okay, why do you think this way? Let me understand where you're coming from and try to get a grip on how did you get from this point to this point, just to try to make a better connection with people and not just shut things down immediately or, whatever. I try to bridge that gap. And there are people that I've talked to before and recently, maybe even in this chat right now, that I haven't agreed with on particular issues. But then when talking to them, we exchange our points and we say, okay, we can both understand at the end of the conversation, this is why we feel the way that we feel, and we can respect that to an extent. I can educate, they can educate, and whatever comes of that is whatever. But being open to that level of communication is so important, not just for life, but especially being on the internet. You're dealing with people across social media that all have an even playing field. Like I mentioned before, of having an account and having a voice, sometimes they're led astray, but sometimes there can be great conversation that comes out of that, and you got to be willing to listen to that person.
Yeah, so building on that, let's talk about this concept of being engaging on an online platform, and how important it is to be consistent, because you have that one moment. You're having a bad day, you're not feeling well, somebody posts a comment, and you take a hard stance on the other side of what they're thinking. This is a democratized platform. I can vote for you as easily as I vote away from you. It is literally one click to unsubscribe and never watch your channel again. So can you talk about what it's like to be a content creator in a space where you have really that even platform with your viewers, your community, but it also a kind of an uneven platform where there are some people that have massive platforms that they can promote on, but at the same time, your community could dissolve as quickly as it because well, I know it took time to build, right? But all that time you spent to build it, it could dissolve very quickly in this type of platform. You talk about what that's like as a content creator, knowing that they have all that power.
I'll take that question and ask you a question, Peter. You ever watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies?
Yes.
And what does Uncle Ben say?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes, and I find that not just in myself, but other people too, who unfortunately may use their platform to promote a toxic behavior or otherwise. And the kind of culture that we're living in right now is very against that toxicity. Sometimes it's misdirected, but a lot of the time, let's find the bad eggs and let's get them out of here because we want to promote and foster a healthy environment. And when I'm addressing my audience, I am the one with the microphone in this case there in the chat. But not only that, I know a lot of the people that are there. I know the voice that they may have, personally. And it starts from a place of respect, I'm not going to try to be on my high horse as Brian Saviano. I have 11,000, blah, 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 and you don't. That's never, ever a part of it. It's a matter of treating everybody with the same level of respect that you would talking to the janitor at the school, the same way that you talk to the president, whatever, And that's a philosophy I've adapted since I was very young, instilled in me by my grandparents since day one, and I maintain that with my audience as well. In terms of me personally, I find myself having pretty, I'm not only an understanding person, but I'm a pretty middle of the road kind of guy on a lot of like issues. So I can see where a lot of people are coming from in different walks of life. I started growing up as an inner city kid, going from East Boston to Lynn, Massachusetts, out to the suburbs in Wakefield. So I've gotten a chance to see all different types of people from all different walks of life. And instead of having just the perspective as someone from the inner city or just the suburbs or whatever, I'm able to take all these different perspectives and help kind of make sense of the world as much as I can. And I take that into my content creation because I don't know who's watching. Maybe I'm entertaining just a single mom. Maybe it's a whole entire family. Maybe it's just a single kid. I have no idea. But you're going to get the same level of respect because that's how I was brought up as a kid.
That's really good. Thank you, Brian. So some other things popping up in chat, talking about getting started. How do you get started? So we can talk about that from a couple of different perspectives. So again, I guess I'll probably make it overcomplicated for you, so I apologize. But what are some ways, if you want to start communicating and building an audience, how do you start creating content? What's a great place to get started? But then I'm also going to throw in, like I said, kind of like an extra level to this. How do you do it if you've got a child, like somebody under 12? How do you help them kind of start expressing themselves and getting to know some of the technology, as well as some of those critical things like how to respect your audience all the time, every time?
Well, luckily, there's a lot of things you can do with the material that you have. A lot of iOS devices have recording applications within inside of them, so you can screen record and then also record like a face cam if you want to, if you want to allow face cam for video. PlayStation and Xbox both have recording capabilities within them, so you can make something and then you don't even necessarily have to put that on YouTube for everybody to see because that's going to be on the internet forever, right? It's going to be something out there that you need to be mindful of. Obviously, if you have a minor, you don't want to do that. So I've heard a lot of parents actually making a private YouTube channel, only accessible via a link that can be shared with the grandparents, the uncles, and the cousins to watch and engage with. And it's in this walled garden. And then if they become age where the parents say, okay, I'm willing to let that kind of go outside of this bubble, then you can allow that if you want to. I started at age 13. I didn't get parents' permission, but don't listen to me. Although it worked out for me, don't listen to me. It was a much different time back then, Back in those days, everybody was like, okay, I'm not going to get in a stranger's car. Why would I talk to the stranger online? Now you order a car that you've never seen before from a person you've never seen before from the airport in a city you've never been in. So clearly It's a very different world that we're engaging with, and it's becoming more commonplace. But there's plenty of resources to find the right equipment if you want to take it a step further. The walled garden approach with a YouTube channel, private or otherwise, sharing clips with family. That's what I always suggest for parents that are just starting out with their young ones.
Yeah, I think that's great stuff. And it's beyond the tech. The technology is a hurdle. But then there's lots of other things like being engaging, which is, I think, much more difficult than setting up cameras and software. Those kinds of things, I think, are pretty easy. You can follow tutorials, but there's really not a lot of things to teach you how to be engaging. I think you really need to do this concept of just watch people that are engaging and start learning lessons. Again, not necessarily mirroring or copying what they do, but understanding how to translate what works for that person that I might be able to use my skill set, my personality to make a similar impact.
Right. And for me, it was, I always encourage in videos, I talk about my day, I talk about how I'm feeling, which ends up being maybe a little bit of self-therapy in a way. I talk about whatever nonsense is going on. And I feel like a lot of parents could find that their kids are doing that similar thing where they're just talking about a random test they had at school. And maybe it was an issue that didn't come up in conversation, but because their child feels confident in just talking about how their day was, they learn something new. And that's another way to engage. And I encourage that for parents across the board, playing games with their kids. Nintendo Switch makes it incredibly easy to take one of the two controllers. You have two controllers to play Mario Kart. And that bonding time is something that is obviously incredibly valuable and in a lot of ways more engaging for kids because they're surrounded by it all the time. How many kids have I seen with a phone or an iPad in like a stroller watching YouTube videos? And if it's something they're used to, the parents can engage in that way and they may learn something new about their kids. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I can share just some of my personal experience, not that anyone's all that interested in hearing necessarily about me, but I'm someone that gets anxious feelings, right? So when I have to go and talk to a class, right, it's my job to teach classes. I still get anxious walking into that classroom. I definitely get anxious doing something like this. But things I found that helped me is doing things. A couple years ago, I did some presentations dressed up as Doc Brown from Back to the Future. Did one dressed up as Darth Vader. I had the Darth Vader helmet on and a suit, and so I was Business Vader. And what I discovered completely by accident was having that filter all of a sudden made my anxious feelings much, much less. Yeah. And I think that same thing may happen for children. If, when they come home from school, they say, "How was your day?" At least at my house, we get fine. We don't get a whole lot of detail.
Right. You don't get an answer. No.
But you turn on Minecraft, you get, you live stream to, your own house by putting a microphone there. You play along with your child. All of a sudden, it seems like there's a lot of more openness. There's kind of like an avatar in between them and their world. And all of a sudden, they can communicate a bit more freely and openly. At least in my experience. And that's one of the reasons why I support that with my son. He regularly on Thursday, I'll get home from work. He goes upstairs, opens up a laptop, gets out the microphone, does mic checks, opens up a Zoom room, and I play from the basement. He plays from upstairs. And that's something he looks forward to every single Thursday to do. But it's also a way, I think, for him to de-stress and to be able to engage much more freely with me as his parent, particularly as an only child.
Right. And it's not just talking about the game at first. It's not just about what you're doing in that game. It ends up bringing up a conversation that is valuable, So that is becoming even more important, especially in the age of technology we're in, where you're communicating a lot of the time through text on a screen, and you're losing a lot of that personal engagement. So having that face cam on or being able to have the microphone on to play with, whoever you're playing with, that adds that level of humanity that we need now more than ever, especially as we've been isolated for the past, like I said, year and a half. So that's what got, I feel like, myself and a lot of other people through the pandemic, the bulk of the quarantine, whatever, is being able to find people that are just talking about how they're feeling. And that really cracked the egg open on people like myself who are content creators, live streaming and being able to engage with a real person, and that maybe that person in the chat who is engaging about some nonsense pertaining to the video game is then able to talk to someone in their household or someone close to them in real life about that issue that's coming out because they're talking, they're engaging. And even that in itself is so, so valuable.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to take another one of those moments, right? So it is valuable. Just remind people again, what are some spaces, places where if your message is resonating, if they're just discovering you for the first time and they're saying, this is somebody that I think should get maybe some more airtime in my household, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me across basically any platform imaginable. I have a YouTube channel where every day I upload gaming content, family-friendly gaming content, provided I'm not away at a show or something. I live stream on Twitch about 3 times a week, sometimes more, depending on the event. I post things on Facebook, Instagram. I have my own Roku channel as Bricks O'Brien. So if you look that up, you'll find my gaming content hosted on there. More platforms to be coming soon. And really anywhere that you want to engage, it's available for you. It is all consistent across the board, it being family friendly. So I have no issues recommending one place over another. You're getting the same stuff on TikTok as you would on like the YouTube channel.
Good. And you're beyond just creating content. You also have missions, right? You not only support the community that's actively engaged in your streams, but you're doing some outreach and you're doing some things coming up. And I want to give you some time to maybe talk about how else do you reach out and support communities beyond just those that are tuning into your YouTube channel or your live streams?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big fan of charity. I love fundraising for great causes, no matter what it is. I recently did a charity event for Stand Up to Cancer, where we raised, I think, $1,700 in a week just playing Minecraft, having a fireside chat, doing other things, and it worked out really well. No matter what the cause is, I was always instilled as a kid to support people that are in need, so I love doing charitable stuff. And now more recently, the big thing that's happening actually this month is a 24-hour live stream that I'm going to be part of on the Beyond the Brick YouTube channel. So people can actually donate whatever amount of money that they'd like to and potentially win a newly unveiled massive AT-AT Lego set. And me and a few other people will be awake for 24 hours building Lego, having discussion, engaging with the chat, and raising money for a cause called Creations for Charity, which provides Lego sets to underprivileged children during the holiday season. So that is something that's happened for the past couple of years that I've been directly involved in. And my role that I kind of appointed to myself was to reach out to people in the Lego community to bring them together, bring their communities together, and be this overarching entity throughout the whole thing. Let's bring people together for a cause that is greater than all of us by giving money to this charity to impact the lives of kids around the world. And it's really a sense that it is bigger than just me or Beyond the Brick or anyone. It's about everybody channeling in for this goal of giving Lego to kids in need. And I knew we could do pretty well if it was just Beyond the Brick, not reaching out to people, like whatever, sure. But by reaching out to all these people across the entire Lego realm, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, whatever it might be, we can do so much more. And like I basically want to raise as much money for charity as possible. So why don't I reach out to some of my friends I have across all the platforms and make something incredible happen? What better feeling would there be than for the Lego community to raise $20,000 for charity for kids in need? I think that'd be incredibly special. And that's what I hope to do on the 24-hour stream. We have all sorts of incentives other than just a Lego set, shenanigans, and people, like I said, from across all platforms. So I'm very much so looking forward to it. The campaign is actually live right now. I believe we've raised $1,700 already. So I will put a link in the chat just to toot the own horn there. But you can donate if you would like to and support the cause.
Thank you, Brian. That is really powerful stuff that you guys pull together, your time, your energy, your talents, to reach out and support others that are not only in your community, but in communities all around that are in need. And I think that's a really powerful part of your brand that, again, may not be seen initially when people tune in or pop up on a YouTube channel or on Twitch. they might not always get that depth of character. And again, I really appreciate your time sharing some of those backgrounds as well. So moving on, let's talk a little bit more about this concept of your brand and where's it going, right? So when you were 13, my guess is, and I could be completely wrong, you weren't thinking about the brand or connecting or engaging. How did that evolve? And at what point did you kind of give yourself, I guess, the credibility to say, you know what, I am a content creator, I'm an entrepreneur, this is a thing that I now do. When did that kind of settle in for you as you were developing things?
It settled in, I want to say, during high school. So relatively quickly, I understood that I could stand as my own entity as a individual or setting up a company or doing something like that. And my goal was to be able to just be myself and have my message delivered, whatever that message might be, whether it's venting about my day or some opinion I have on a Lego set. Putting that out there for people to discover in whatever way that they could. And that's been consistent across the board. The Bricks O'Brien brand didn't really become a thing until 2018, but I always had this idea that I could be a content creator doing the thing and in this constantly evolving space where initially it was you're a YouTuber, you're only on YouTube doing a thing. Well, now there's live streaming on Twitch. And then, if I'm aiming my stuff at a younger audience potentially, got to be on Facebook because the parents are on Facebook, and just growing everything as it became established. And now we're in a time where content creators of many different sizes can have things that were only dreamed of just a couple of years ago. I'm sure if you go to the aisles of Target, you'll see YouTubers that have merchandise on the shelf, action figures, and they have their own animated shows and books and all these different things. And what's to say I couldn't do something like that myself? With this mascot that I have right here, I've developed it so that way it's, easily drawn by younger people. It's recognizable. It's distinct in art style. So I am inadvertently setting myself up for whatever may come down the line, because why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I try to go the absolute furthest I could with this opportunity while I'm still young, while I'm still in the position to be on my own and make this thing work as much as I can. And having the flexibility and mobility that I have in my life allowed me more opportunities than if I had a 9-to-5 job or something else that kind of impedes that. So it's been something for a while.
That's good. And so one of the things, and we didn't discuss this, so I'm going to throw this out to you, and I apologize for not giving you at least prep on this, but
that's okay.
Something that's been, I guess, going through my mind as we've been talking about this is that for me, things like playing video games, building Lego are my relief from work. That's where I go to de-stress from my job. But that's your job, to play video games and build Lego. How do you de-stress? Do you still be able to play video games and de-stress, or is that stressful for you? Can you talk to me about how things that are typically hobbies and stress relievers, what happens and how do you now have those as part of your regular job?
Yeah, it's something that I feel like everybody in my position struggles with, because we have taken this thing and turned it into a career. And that happens for people across all different mediums, not just being a live streamer on Twitch or otherwise. For me personally, I do find it very difficult to de-stress by playing video games, because I should be recording this content, or I should be editing this thing or doing this thing. And sometimes with a Lego set, for example, I will just build it for myself, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. And I get all of my video game playing, for the most part, done while I'm doing the videos. These are games that I would be playing on my own otherwise, that I want to share with people because that's what I do. And that energy just kind of goes into that. And in terms of other things to alleviate stress and try to decompress, I struggle with it. I really, really do. My audience knows this. People that are close to me know this. And especially difficult for me because a lot of my friends are, my age or a little bit older. They have 9 to 5 jobs. They are stressed themselves about the economy and the housing market and the blah, 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 right? All these things. And that stress inadvertently carries over to when I'm even hanging out with them. And that can be stressful in itself too. So sometimes when I'm hanging out with friends, it's like everyone's all ticked off at each other. And I'm like, man, I just want to relax. And then everyone else is, oh my God. So that's kind of where I find myself at right now. And it's unfortunate, but it's one of those hurdles that I have as a 25-year-old navigating this space, and having only myself in this office definitely doesn't help. There's no accountability other than my own, unless one of the moms messages me and pesters me about doing something, then I'll do it. But that's just the loving moms out there. So,
and that is a real challenge. I think for myself, I don't say antisocial. I'm very much pro solitude. So I really like being alone. It's recharging for me, but it's also isolating, and having to go into a space like you're talking about, Brian, is it's a commitment, but it's also challenging to then do so a lot of times we talk about this concept for businesses at the Launchbox, where there's two sides to your business. There's an innovation side where you're building the things that come next, like what's next for this. But you can't focus on that because you still have to maintain. So there's a maintenance side of that puzzle, which says, well, you've already built kind of a ship, and if you don't maintain the ship, it will sink. So you can't do only one of those things, because if you're only maintaining, nothing new is happening. And if you're only worrying about the new exciting stuff, all the stuff that is your foundation goes away. Are there things that you do to kind of maintain that balance? Because again, putting out, YouTube videos on a daily basis, right? Like, you're putting out content all the time. When do you find time to do the innovative stuff, and do you prefer one of those sides versus the other? Because I tend to prefer the innovation side, and that sometimes gets me in trouble because I forget, there needs to be balance.
I mean, I like doing both. When I'm away at a convention doing hosting or whatever it might be, I do miss engaging with the live streams. Like, the live streams are the most consistent, in the moment, maintaining thing that requires consistency. For me, I do love both. I would side more with the innovation side. And the way that marketing, I guess, works, 'cause I don't have a marketing degree, but when I'm here in November, I'm already thinking about summer. What can I do to make that an engaging thing, no matter what it might be, whether it's new products, new branding, new types of videos to put out thematically around summertime something. So in between me recording and doing things, I find myself innovating in that way. What I'll normally do is record the bulk of my videos for the day, or whatever live streams or whatever, while I have the actual voice and the energy to do that mentally and emotionally to do that. And then once that's depleted, let myself rest for a little while. And then while I'm doing this, I always have these little things I'm thinking of. Like, something I unveiled today was something I had an idea for like 3 months ago, which is like a Bricks O'Brien Christmas card, which has a whole layout and all that. It's got tributes to my moderators in there and all little Easter eggs and stuff. And those sort of things I'm able to do by commissioning an artist. Why wouldn't I? Because people would really enjoy that if I did that, having a Bricks O'Brien Christmas card. But not everyone does all those things to the level that I'm at. And not just small things too, but big projects, big things that are, I have a meeting for this. I have a contract going on for this thing I'm not talking about yet. All these different things are happening. So it's not just planning for things in the moment and in the future, but different scales to those projects on different amounts of time too that add into it.
And you bring up great points, which is this concept of, you might be a solo person. You're in the office by yourself. I'm here in my basement by myself, but we still need to reach out and connect and be have other people on our team. It doesn't mean that they need to be employees. It doesn't mean that they need to be constantly with us. But when there's things that we need that are either beyond our capabilities or just beyond our ability to make it a priority, right? So if you have certain things you have to do every single day, and this thing's been on your to-do list for a month, that's when you kind of have this clue. Maybe I need to reach out and find somebody that can help me, because I might be able to do it, but it's not going to reach a high enough priority for me to get done. And I think that's an important lesson that you share about how you connect with others and bring in other people to get stuff done.
Right. Like, I know if I took the time to be an artist and get all the skills necessary to do that, then it would take me so much longer to execute on that, the level of quality that I would want it to be. And that also factors into myself as a manager of the ship, as the guy making the whole thing go. What things am I doing, or that I could do, physically do, that would not be to the level of quality that I want? What artist can I hire? What editor can I look into? What person can I look to share my vision with, to see if it even works, if it's resonating, you know? And if you're doing all of that yourself, that gets very overwhelming. And luckily, I found a very incredible team of not just illustrators to work with for a lot of like the design work and stuff, but also to people that I have an idea and I'm like, hey, is this a bad idea? Is this a good idea? And I'll get honest feedback in real time. Not only does that offer me a chance to talk to those people, it may be facilitated around what this thing is, but I'm also just talking to them like, hey, I value your opinion as a person. Let me run this by you. And that the people that I talk to about those things that care, I think they find it very valuable, and they're like, oh yeah, I get to see all the new spicy stuff coming out before anyone else, you know, little things or big projects too.
I think so. And I know Jennifer just had to head off to a meeting, so we'll say goodbye to Jennifer. Hopefully she's still around to say goodbye. But we've got a couple other comments coming up and questions. I'm going to get to that in a second. But what you're talking about reminded me of a lesson I learned probably way too late in life, not that long ago. Something a way to look at our attention, which is we really only have two options. We can either attend to something or we can attend away from something. So if you're making graphics, you have to attend to that focus point. So your time, your energy, attention has to go there. And as soon as you choose to attend to that, you're by default attending away from everything else. What
Yep.
are you going to eat? Family members, friends, making your videos. And that to me was something that really brought to my attention how critically important it is if the things we choose to attend to really should be very important things, because the moment we attend to something, everything else in our life has by default become attended away from. And
Yeah.
that really makes me think about, where does my time, energy, and attention go? Because I don't want to attend away from my family, my son. But I also know when I go to work, I have to make that choice. So I think that's really important as a business person, but also as just a friend, a family member as well, to be considering what are the critically important things that you need to attend to, and making sure that you do not attend away from those.
Right. And like you said, that's to anyone, you know, and for as much as I may be doing with my Bricks O'Brien brand and all these other things, there are social events I could have gone to. There are relationships I could have pursued. There's all these other infinite possibilities that are out there for what I could have done. And that becomes even more complicated when you have children and you have a mortgage and this car payment and this thing and that thing. And the deck becomes stacked with all these other obligations. And a lot of people that are doing the content creation thing full time, they are younger people with less obligations, not a lot of debt, whatever it might be. And they're able to make it work. And they're setting an unfair image of what it might be to make it happen. And of course, you know, we're in America, you and me, you know, we can make anything happen, you know, whatever. So you can do whatever you have the time and the prioritization for. But if you have something that you value more, there's nothing stopping you from doing that thing. I was talking to my buddy Mike, who's in the chat right now. He's a father, full-time job, has his own YouTube channel. And he's like, how do I make it work, Brian? And I'm like, you can't live up to what I'm doing because I'm a single guy that goes from literally sleeping to this. And that's my thing. Like, you're not supposed to keep up with what I'm doing because you have a family. And if I had 2 kids and a wife, yeah, forget a lot of this stuff. I want to go do that. And then, you know, hopefully by the point that I'm at the point where I'm having kids and I have a wife and all that, I can pay someone to post the TikToks for me. I don't even have to worry about it. But until that point, yeah, you got to value the things that you have. And there's nothing wrong with valuing your family time and valuing the things that don't make your content more valuable. Like, that's totally fine. And I respect it wholeheartedly.
Good. All right. So a couple questions that we'll get to, and we're maybe about 10, 15 minutes away from wrapping up. So we've got, if people have some questions, you burning questions you want to get to Brian, we'll throw those in the chat, and we'll kind of let Brian run through and answer anything he wants as we go, which he always can. But just so, one of the other things we talked about this concept of being open to opportunity, and we're kicking into some of this now. And I don't remember who asked it now. I've lost it on my chat. But basically, now I'm going to have to look for it, because now I've lost it. So anyway, let's talk about being open to opportunity. Someone asked a question. I lost it. I'll track it down in a moment. But as you're going through, you're doing all this, opportunities here and there, and you have time commitments, you have priority commitments. We just talked about, potentially family commitments for other people. How do you kind of stay open to opportunity when you have responsibilities and you have maybe even fears or things to say, where someone says, hey, can you come do a thing? And you're like, I've never done a talk at a college. I don't know if you have, but I asked you to do a thing that might not be something that you've ever done before. How do you stay open to opportunity, but also not get overwhelmed by saying, yes, I'll try anything new for the first time, every time, and maybe not finding great comfort in always doing something new?
Well, it comes from, I feel, for me, my place of just being open to all different types of people and situations and perspectives. Like, we have one life to live, whatever we want to live. And why the question that is instilled in my head is, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I dream the dream that I have? Why wouldn't I pursue this opportunity or talk to this person or this other thing? Because we're humans, and our time on this earth is so short but so long at the same time. And while I don't have these obligations that would otherwise, I don't want to say impair, that's not the right word, but otherwise keep me with my family, my immediate family, why wouldn't I keep pursuing it and keep going at it? And any of those anxieties, like I have a big travel anxiety thing. I don't like traveling. I really don't. I don't care to go see places. Like, not really at all. Like, I'm content staying here, a teleconference in. And if you said to me, Peter, hey, we want to fly you out to Penn State Abington, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I'll go on the plane. I will grip the seat and be like, all right, the jet engine going to explode? Like, all that will run through my head, but I'll do it, because if I don't, then I'm restricting myself to only what I can do in this office and only what happens within these four walls. Why wouldn't I push myself to go further, especially when I don't have somebody else pushing me? I'm willing to take whatever opportunity I can, because I allow myself, not just, financially, because I have a little bit saved up and I'm being smart about how I'm doing things, but also mentally. Like, I'm not going to let one little thing get in the way for me. And I bust through it like the Kool-Aid man. I'm like, just rush through all that social anxiety. Like, it can't be a factor.
Right. Yeah. And, for me, I'm fortunate. I'm similar. I don't like traveling, but I've been fortunate. I have a great friend and a work colleague, and we've had to travel quite a bit for work. And one of the things that I truly value is Lennon, if he's out there, Lennon Agudo. He's just a great person. But if it weren't for him, I would have said no to all kinds of opportunities. We traveled to Costa Rica a few years ago. But what I really appreciate about having people with me on that journey, he understands my anxiety, but he also understands some of my coping mechanisms. So I like Twizzlers nibs. They're the little licorice pieces.
Yeah.
And, when it's time, he picks me up in the morning to go to the airport. First thing when I get in the car with him, he's got a pack of nibs for me, because he gets that. And to me, that's a really important concept of having team around you. And Gary Smith had asked a question. I'll kind of segue into that about, you have a team and you have a community, but have there been thoughts in your mind about how does this grow? And at some point, are there multiple people working under the Bricks O'Brien, Brian Saviano banner? Have you thought about that? And what might that look like in your mind?
Well, I have thought about it, and the thing that immediately comes to mind is all these horror stories I hear of people who are not getting paid or properly, not just properly for what they do, but being paid consistently for what they're doing. And I know within myself, if I'm not making an amount of money that can realistically pay someone on a consistent basis, I am confident in as a business owner or as Brian Saviano that I'm not going to do it, because I want to be able to guarantee to that person I'm bringing on that they're going to get that paycheck or it's going to be consistent, you know? And especially with the smaller businesses that are content creators, there's a lot of freelance work. There's a lot of contract work. And that's not, at least in my opinion, it's not from a place of like, you know, oh, I don't want to pay your benefits or I don't want to do this. It's just like, I don't want to guarantee something I can't guarantee. And I make enough to support what I'm doing and to drive that ship, but not at a point right now where I can support this whole team. And if there's a plethora of things that I can't do that a team could do for me, and I trust in that team, I have no problem in letting them do it. I've had people make thumbnails for me previously, do some editing work for me. I have no problems with relinquishing control in that way, so long as they are capable of doing that and they get paid appropriately for it. So it's just all in due time. But right now I'm in a spot where I can confidently say I'm sustaining myself. All these multi-million-dollar deals aren't paying for the mansion yet, but
in due
hopefully
time,
one day.
be patient. It's coming. So while we're talking about that, let's just remind people one more time, where can they find you? How can they help you build the environment where you've got the $1 million mansion, but you're also helping support and sustain several others as well?
Yeah, watching on YouTube or Twitch, either one of the gaming videos I post every day, a live stream on Twitch, the most engaging, interactive place that I'm at 3 times a week would be most awesome. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I have my own Roku channel, as I said before, for having my content be on there. So really any place that you want to reach out to me, even if it's not something pertaining to video games or Lego, like if there's something that you have an idea for or something that you want to run by me, I always like engaging with people and hearing new ideas. So it's not just from the perspective of watching me. You can do whatever. I'm open to hearing it, anything and everything at this rate.
That is great. So like I said, we've got just a handful more minutes left, and I wanted to make sure you, Brian, had at least a forum. Is there anything else that you want to share, communicate, or just express as our honored guest at Global Entrepreneurship Week 2021 at Penn State? I think you've been really a great asset to our offerings, because this is stuff that should resonate. It resonates with a lot of us, but you're also you're about the age of many Penn State students, and you're engaging with age groups all across the board. But I wanted to, again, thank you for that time, but also, is there anything else you want to cover or express that you think might be important for our listeners to hear today?
Yeah, you know, in the time that we're in, we can make many things happen very quickly. I can talk to a graphic artist in the UK on Friday and get something done by Monday morning. That is the world that we're living in. And you find yourself in this cycle of constantly doing things. You are able to make almost anything happen with your own wit, your passions, your expertise, and a little bit of money, right? There's so much of that happening that you need to remember to take that time for yourself, because you do have this one life. And if you have that person you have in your life, that family that you have that you want to spend time with, it doesn't matter if it's taking away from your business or otherwise, because that could potentially outlive, you know, the person that you want to spend time with. So I would encourage anybody, especially who's young, who may have grandparents that they want to spend time with, please spend time with them. Spend time with the people that you value most. Don't be afraid to cancel that live stream to go hang out with your grandparents or whoever, because that's very valuable. Very, very valuable. And I have no hesitancy in doing that at all. And if you foster the type of community that I have, they're going to be very understanding of that, and they'll be rocking with you until the wheels fall off. And I've been overwhelmingly honored to have the community that I have of people from all different walks of life, all different ages, of all different backgrounds, that are behind me, not just because of my family friendly content that their kids can watch or whatever, but because of the ideas that I have, and I'm able to get something out there that people appreciate and people love. And I know that if everybody allowed themselves to have the most opportunity available to them and passed through that anxiety that they have, unlock that within your mind, bust through that wall like the Kool-Aid man, you can do a lot more in life than you could ever imagine. And for as many things as I have going on right now, there are plenty of other things that people don't know of at large that are cooking up. And I'm very excited for those things. And I hope that somebody out there found this talk valuable and follows me along for the journey, because I would appreciate you being there.
Yeah, and
so thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I think just looking through chat, there's lots of messages. We love you, Brian. You rock. There's not much higher praise that you can get than that. So I think that you are making a difference. You are making an impact. And I think those are some really important words of just taking time to support the things that matter.
Yes.
We forget about all the things that we have in our life we think will be there forever, and they will not. So take time. Tell people you love them. I tell my students all the time when I give them a break, I'm like, get out your phone, text your mom or your whoever. Just tell somebody, hey, I love you. Like, I don't care who it is. Just text a random number sometimes. Like, tell people that you're there and you care.
And not only that, but allow yourself to enjoy that moment. Don't just do it because somebody may have told you to, and then you go back to your thing. Allow yourself to be in the present moment and step back and acknowledge where you're at and how far you've come. Because when I've done that, it's been very powerful for me, and everybody should do that more often.
Absolutely. Megan Klein had asked, and I think I missed her question earlier about the taking advantage of opportunities, but she just asked, and we'll make this one of our wrap-up questions again. How do you keep your high standards, right? You have high standards of valuing people off the screen, valuing the people that share on-screen time with you. How do you keep those standards high, and specifically the family-friendly stuff, particularly when there's so many other things that are hot and now that you might be able to jump in line, but it's not consistent with the brand. How do you manage that, and I guess justify also not jumping on the hottest thing because it's not quite your brand?
Well, I have these brand guidelines in my head that I follow. Like what am I going to allow to an extent as an extension of my brand? And I've collaborated with some people that are not family friendly all the time, and I make that disclaimer very well known if it's transitioning into something like that. But in terms of the people that, like, the brands that I may represent or endorse, you'll never see me recommend the powdered energy drink, the ooze, the gaming ooze, as I call it, because it's just sugar in a can, right? That sort of stuff, no, because it's chemical. No, we're all set with that. I'll stick to my coffee. Yeah, that's about it. But for me, it's easy because it's simply laid out in my mind. Is it something that I would do as a person? Is it something that I'm willing to endorse? Is this a person that I feel comfortable if I were having my younger fans watch? If the answer is even a shadow of a doubt no, then it's a no. And I've denied collaboration opportunities in the past, and it's just simply how it is. And it does kind of, not have me for every single little opportunity, but it allows for so much more. If I were so crass in my language all the time, would I be speaking today here? Would I be out there entertaining families around the world? Probably not. So just being aware of what your brand guidelines are and maintaining that, it doesn't become difficult. It becomes simple. It's either a yes or a no. And if it's a no, it's a no. And it's fine.
Yeah, it's really, really well stated about how critically important it is to have your boundaries, but be comfortable with them. They're your boundaries. You can set them.
Yeah.
And I think that matters. This is good.
Yeah,
so,
and not just for content creation, just as a person too. Like, if you're overstepping about, like, you are you. Like, maintain who you are in spite of all of it. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. All right. So we're getting ready to wrap. So I'll put it up one more time. All the places and spaces you can check out Brian and Bricks O'Brien's content. Check him out if you're interested in seeing. He's super accessible. You can see content coming out every day, and I think it's really great stuff. And I've been thankful to be able to share, screen time, whatever this is. It's been really cool to share some of that with you, and our viewers, I think, really appreciated the time and energy. And I'll make one quick ask. We do have content from the Abington Launchbox as well. So if you like any of that content, check some of it out. We had a session in the spring about how to de-stress and sleep well so that you can perform, whether it's as a student, an employee, a content creator. We've had people like Richard and Flynn from the Lego Masters Season 1 here in the US have talked about creativity and innovation. And immediately following this, at 1:45 p.m. Eastern, we have a program we call Launch Trajectories. It's a short program, about 15 minutes, where we talk with Penn State Abington students about the businesses that they run. So much like you, Brian, they oftentimes start businesses at a young age. And actually, the person coming on right after this is Josh Ventura. He started his business. He has a music production company. They develop artists. They produce music. Started in his grandmother's house. So maybe there's something to it. It just happened to line up that way. So if you're around, you can check that out on the Abington Launchbox YouTube channel as well. And please go check out Brian and support not only him, but having content creators that have this mindset. I think the more of this that's out there, I think it's really going to be important for particularly our young children to have access to hearing voices like this, to hearing that consistent, kind, respectful message that still can get a little bit silly and fun as well.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure. And I look forward to whatever may come in the future for the both of us as creators in our own right. And this crazy thing we call life gets crazier every year, man.
Indeed it does. So with that, we'll wrap up here. And again, Brian, I appreciate the time, the energy. I appreciate those that tuned in. Chat was full and robust, and hopefully everything was relevant, meaningful, and resonated with people that they watched. You have plenty of outlets to find more content like this. So Brian, thanks again for being part of Global Entrepreneurship Week 2021. I thank you. I don't really speak for Penn State, but I'm going to speak for them now because, like you said, I have the microphone. So Penn State thanks you for sharing all the background, all the stories, but also the humanness, the kindness that you bring to every time you step in front of a camera and a microphone. We greatly appreciate it, and I think it was meaningful for our Penn State community to hear it. So thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll see you all next time. Thanks for the time, Brian, and we'll see you. Bye.